Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Davenport School Board Candidate Forum. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's quite an honor that we have such a big panel to select from, and I'm really happy that you're all here to make this very important decision in a couple of weeks. I'm Julie DeSalvo. I'm a current member of the Davenport Community School District School Board, and I'm chair of the Legislative Advocacy Committee, who is in charge of running this forum this evening. We're pleased to have all the candidates running and all in attendance tonight. There is one candidate that unfortunately could not make it. Jennifer Starr had an unexpected family emergency, so she could not join us this evening. Thank you to KWQC for broadcasting this event for us. We are live. We are on Cozy TV. Our moderator tonight for this evening's event is David Nelson from KWQC. Special thanks to David for taking the time out of his evening to be with us. I think he's supposed to be somewhere in about an hour, but he got the night off. So what I'd like to do before we get started is lay out a few ground rules for this evening's event. But before I get started, for safety reasons, exit is here and over here should we have to evacuate. Restrooms are outside. Take a left, kind of keep going left past the elevators, and around the corner you'll find the restrooms there. Doors are unlocked for you for this evening only. So to begin, David Nelson will call the candidates and ask them each to introduce themselves. We will allow 1 minute for each candidate to give an introduction. During the forum, all responses will be allowed only the specified amount of time to respond to. Each question response time will be timed, so each candidate will be given the same amount of time to respond. I ask that during the forum, anyone that we not speak out to the candidates, let them speak and give their responses. We want to be respectful of our candidates, so we ask that the questions that you ask not be directed to one particular candidate, but to every candidate. So every candidate will answer every question. On your chair, you have a note card. You can write down questions on that note card. We will do our best to get to all of them, but we have a great crowd tonight, so I don't know that we get to all of your questions, but we will sure try. We will begin the session with prepared questions that we have about relevant topics now, and the candidates will be given 1.5 minutes to answer each question. At the end of the forum, then, each candidate will be given the opportunity to give a 2-minute concluding statement. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Nelson. He has a couple more rules that he'd like to just tell you how we kind of came up with some of the things we did this evening. So welcome, David, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. And welcome to everyone who is here tonight, and welcome to everyone watching on TV and online. We are live streaming this event here tonight. I wanted to start by pointing something out. This Davenport School Board election is remarkable. And it's remarkable just by the sheer number that we're seeing here tonight. 14 candidates are running for the school board, and that is by far and away the highest number ever. To put that in perspective, 2 years ago, the last election, there were 6 who ran. 2 years before that, 2015, there were 3. And 2 years before that, there were 5. So the number that we have running this time around is equal to the last 3 elections combined. Clearly, there is a lot of interest that we have in this election. And we want to promote that interest, and we want to encourage it. And again, we appreciate everyone who is turning out here this evening. What we want to do is we want you to be a better informed voter when you go on November 5th to make your decision in this very important election. Now, in a moment, as Julie just mentioned, each of the candidates will introduce themselves and give their opening statements. They'll do that in alphabetical order, the order in which they are seated here, the front table, beginning from left to right and then continuing left to right on the back table. I will ask a number of prepared questions, followed by questions submitted by the public, each of which will be answered by the candidates. And each chair should have a card and a pencil, so if you just want to write down, just as this woman is doing right here, write down your question and then hold it up, then my boss, Stephanie here in purple, will come around and will get your question and bring it up here for the public comment portion. For each question, we will go in a different order that was randomized by computer earlier today. Before our first question, a quick public service announcement. This is from the Scott County Auditor's Office. Absentee ballots are being printed right now and prepared as we speak. They point out the election again 2 weeks from tomorrow, so when you receive that ballot, make sure that you vote and get it back in the mail ASAP so that your vote can be received in time. All right, now we're going to begin with the candidates introducing themselves and their opening statements, and we will begin with Katarina Bolton.
Good evening. I just want to say that I feel that I have a privilege here to be able to run for school board. Not every family in the district has the ability, given their circumstances for work and whatnot, to be able to make this commitment. So I feel lucky to be here. As he said, my name is Katarina Bolton. I have 4 children in the district from kindergarten to a senior this year. I'm running for school board after being impacted in many different ways to help lead the district on a positive path forward. I've come to the school board meetings for almost 2 years now. Teachers, building staff, and students are the backbone of our community, and it's time that we start treating them as such. Thank you.
And then continue on, yes.
Hi, my name is Kai Dickman. I'm a father of 2 daughters. My oldest is in kindergarten, just started this year. My youngest will be starting preschool next year. They're my main reason, I'd say, for wanting to run. I also enjoy volunteering and community service. I recently volunteered at Fillmore Elementary for the United Way to help set up a STEM room. I think of myself as a very analytical person, and that's a skill I think I would bring to the school board. The main goals, if I'm elected, would be to help the district to get on a path to fiscal sustainability, to work with the superintendent to make reforms to correct systemic issues, and to support the district to stabilize and increase enrollment, and hopefully make a more positive public perception of the district.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Dugan. I have been a Davenport Schools parent for just over 20 years. I have 4 children who have all attended Davenport schools. I am also one of the founders of District-Wide Davenport. That's a PTO that's working citywide to ensure that every child has an equitable education here in Davenport. Myself and my colleagues who have been working at District-Wide Davenport for the last 2 years have been researching and communicating with our people in our community as well as at the state level. 3 things we have found missing is accountability, equity, and transparency. So that made me want to run for a leadership position so that I can bring some of those qualities to our board. And on the board, our focus will be to make sure that our teachers have the support in the classroom and as many dollars as possible get to our classroom, that every child gets an education, and that we have fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Michael.
Good evening. I'm Michael Duvall. I'm running for school board. As a lifelong resident of Davenport Community Schools, I've always enjoyed my public education. Now with 2 kids in school, I've seen some changes I would like to be part of. Going forward, I'd like a lot more transparency, understanding with the community, decisions for the community. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dan Gosa. I am running for re-election. I am currently seated on the school board. I am a graduate of the Davenport Community School District. I lived in Davenport all my life. I have 4 kids. Well, my wife and I have 4 kids. I didn't do it all alone. I have a freshman in high school. I have a 7th grader, and I also have a 1st grader. I have been actively volunteering within the schools. I've done the Watchdog program for the past 10 years now. It's a great program, and I hope other people get involved with that. I'm very active and involved in my community. I've been the president of Davenport North Little League. I just got reelected to my 5th term. I enjoy coaching the youth and helping them. And I think I'm about out of time, so I'll cut it at that.
My name is, there's no one yet until I flip the thing. My name is Gene Guy, and I've been married for 51 years to Cinda. We have 4 children, all of which have attended and graduated from Davenport. We have 8 grandchildren. 5 have already graduated, and 3 are still in the system, 2 freshmen and 1 senior. We have 3 grandchildren, but they are 2 of them are young enough that they won't be in school or even preschool quite yet. The other one's in kindergarten. So we've had some very close ties to the Davenport School District from beginning to end, from pre-K through 12. About 8 years or so ago, I retired and volunteered as a lunch buddy, a STARS program, classroom support, and Watchdog, which I happen to believe is a very good program. And I also won an award in the education division of the Davenport Volunteer Connection, and that award came a plaque and $500. I kept the plaque, but I gave the $500 to the school.
Linda?
Good evening. My name is Linda Hayes. I'm a current member on the Davenport Community School Board. With this job, you really have to have a passion for it in order to do it. A few of the things that I would like to continue on the board would help me make my decision. Initially, I decided I wasn't going to run again, but we have a few things that we're working with during our phase 2 audit. You know, I'm interested in the transparency. We need to become fiscally sound and work with the budget, continue working with the legislators to get additional funding for the district. We have a lot of dollars that we're needing to cut within the next year, and potentially we can have an entirely new board, and I decided to run again. So some of those initiatives that we've started, we will be able to finish them.
Okay, Mark?
Hello, my name is Mark Holloway. Wow, this is an amazing turnout, an amazing group of candidates who are running for school board as well. And one of the reasons for that is because our kids are important. Our teachers are important. So I've had 4 students in the Davenport School District. I've worked with Davenport School students for 16 years, 6 of which as an admissions counselor, and 10 years working in workforce development. So I have seen a lot of students come out of Davenport who are looking to go on to college, who are looking to find a career, and there's a lot of promise, there's a lot of excitement, but there's also a lot of work for some of our students to achieve as well. And so my candidacy will be about transparency, fiscal responsibility, and making sure that each of our students have a good plan for college or their career once they leave Davenport schools. Thank you for coming out tonight. This is awesome.
Hi, my name is Jenner Keeley. I'm the mother of 2 children who have graduated from the Davenport School District. I'm a family navigator with the University of Iowa Child Health Specialty Clinics. I work with families who have children with special needs involved in our state's early intervention system. Davenport School District faces daunting challenges of a budget with limited financial funding. Moving forward, it is important that the district find a way to balance the decision of giving our children a quality education while repaying this debt.
Good evening. I'm Karen Klein-Jerome. I'm a proud graduate and retired teacher of the Davenport School District. I'm running for the Davenport School Board because I want to continue my involvement and support for our public schools. Student learning and success is my top priority. Students need a safe environment to allow them to prepare to lead productive lives. All students in Davenport deserve the best education with reasonable class sizes and opportunities to discover their passion. My focus is to prepare students to live productive lives, restore trust in the district in the areas of finance and special education, and to improve communication in the district.
Lori?
Good evening. My name is Lori Frieden-Yankee, and I'm obviously running for school board. I am the mother of 4 daughters here in our district. One graduated and is studying to be a teacher at UNI, and then I have a junior at West, a freshman at North, and a 5th grader at Walcott. I am also a founding member of District-Wide Davenport, like Carrie Dugan had mentioned. We have spent the last 2 years attending school board meetings, getting very involved in the entire process, the kind of intricate working of from sitting in those seats anyway for Davenport schools. Like Carrie, I am all about, I'd like to see more of a focus of accountability, transparency, equity. I would like to see more community engagement. It has been called upon. We've been asked to be more engaged with our public, as well as fiscal responsibility with our tax dollars. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kent Poshton. I'm a farmer from the Walcott area. I'm a graduate of Davenport Central. Our 4 children are graduates of Davenport West. I have 3 grandchildren attending West and Walcott. Some of my concerns, I've been attending school board meetings for the last year and a half, and I've gotten frustrated over that year and a half. Biggest concern is the budget. We just can't keep kicking the can down the road, and it's being addressed now, but we got to continue to watch how we're spending our money. I'm concerned about the way the sale of the Lincoln School building was handled. I think there was some big issues there. I also have an issue with directors not being in attendance at school board meetings instead of via phone. I don't think you can be a very effective director if you're not there in person. Also, discipline in the classroom, and then also the previous superintendent breaking the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Craig Piggott. I'm a business owner in Davenport. I'm married and I've got 2 children within the district. I've also got 2 boys that did not go to the school district. They were in Cambridge, Illinois. My reasonings behind doing this is basically I've heard so many stories in regards to these kids who overrun the schools, overrun the teachers, and the fact that there has to be a different way that we're chasing this $3 million loss that we're trying to chase through marketing, through empowering, through getting kids basically and parents involved in the school with depth is what I'm looking to do.
All right, that concludes our opening statements today, and we know that a number of people have walked in here in the last 5 or 10 minutes, so you'll notice on each chair there is a card and a pencil, and if you have a question for the candidates, you can write that down and then get the attention here of Stephanie Hedrick in purple, and she'll bring that up front. Question number 1 tonight. As a school board member, you are responsible for the oversight of facilities management, which includes buying, selling, and leasing properties. As you know, the board recently accepted an offer of $30,000 for the former Lincoln School instead of a higher offer. As a school board member, could you support a similar decision in the future and explain why or why not? We'll begin this one with Kai Dickman.
I do not support the sale for the $30,000. It's from the information I've been able to get, the limited information I've been able to get, it sounds like it's being sold for far less than it should be. I know there were higher offers made and that they were rejected. And I feel that if such a situation came up, we would have to be more transparent about it. Bettendorf recently sold a school earlier this year, and they released documents minutes after the buyer had signed the agreement. Davenport has been resisting releasing the same information, and I think that's something that needs to be shared publicly so we all understand why that decision was made.
All right, thank you. Next, Karen Klein-Jerome.
I also think that there were too many offers out there that were much bigger, that the due diligence, I understand, was 6 months, 12 months. Some of those offers in 2016, the year would have gone by and the district was still paying for the building the last 3 years, that they could have waited on that due diligence. And I do think that we should be demanding the best price we can get for property we're selling or any purchases that we make.
Mark Holloway.
So, David, the answer to that question is really, I believe there's more information needs to be brought to bear, because I don't know if it was a great deal or not, because I was not in that room. The board makes a decision as a whole. And from the limited information I've gotten from media, I really can't make a determination about whether it was a good deal or a bad deal. I think, when there was decisions made, they were made for a reason. I think the more information we can get about why those decisions were made, I think the more informed and better decisions we all can make. So I think more information, more transparency is what will allow me to make a better decision.
Jennifer Starr. I'm sorry.
she's not here.
Jennifer Starr is not here this evening, as we mentioned earlier. So we'll move on to Katarina Bolton.
So I don't agree with the decision, and I would not in the future, given that the tax base that we could have had that would go back into the community is no longer there for a cash-strapped district already. And I understand that, so they're saying that this is done to help kids in the community. If we want to help kids in the community, we need to start within what are we doing within our school district? What are our policies? What are we doing that's impacting our students? I don't think we should be delegating it out to other people. I do think that that's good to have a community relationship with others, but selling the school for the means of the great things, selling the school for the great things that they're going to be doing, and again, the lack of transparency. Maybe there was a good decision, but we won't know when we can only speculate given the information that we have. And right now it's that it's hurting because we're not getting that tax base back, and they're not going beyond how it's going to help our kids. And again, if we want to help our kids, it should be taking a look at what we can do internally to help our students. Thank you.
Michael Duvall.
I cannot say I support the sale of Lincoln School for just $30,000. Like all school finances, they should be open to the public. There may have been a good reason. We will never know until it's way too late. I highly doubt that is anywhere near fair market value. I feel all decisions by the board should be transparent to be sure that they are not being favored one group over another. We'd like that to go back, add to the tax base, help improve Davenport's situation in the future.
Dan Gosa.
I actually just wrote a guest editorial that'll hopefully be in the Times this week about this. I did, when I was asked by the reporter right after I voted, I did explain why I voted the way I did. That didn't make the paper. But the whole deal of it is that was a viable offer. Okay, that was a real offer. There was no due diligence. I mean, there was a due diligence period. It wasn't ridiculous. There was no waiting on historic tax credits. Okay, that stuff takes time. And as we're paying for this building, which we pay for this building out of the general fund, that goes to fund our teachers, paraeducators, custodians, and so on and so on. When we're faced with budget cuts, I didn't want to have to, are we going to pick a teacher? Are we going to pick a custodian? You know, a couple paraeducators to cover this cost, right? Those are real people's jobs. That's a direct effect to the classroom, which I did not want to have a direct effect to the classroom, okay? Back in 2000, the district sold Roosevelt Elementary to the city of Davenport for $1. And they've done a lot of good things down in that community, and it's still a viable asset to that neighborhood 19 years later, okay? I can't even list all the things that they do in there, but the proposed stuff that the group that purchased Lincoln are going to do, I'm hoping there will be a lot of youth programs there, so maybe we can cut down on the
Okay,
juvenile crime and everything like that, and I'm done.
Kent Poston.
We're dealing with taxpayers' dollars. There's no question that when an asset is going to be sold from the district, it should go to the highest bidder. Otherwise, it's a slap in the face to the taxpayers. If you want to gain some credibility in the city of Davenport, you got to respect that.
Lori Yonke.
Much like Kent said, this is taxpayers' dollars that we are playing with. And while I am sure the agency that has purchased it, they have great plans, but that was tax dollars, that was taxpayers' equity built up in paying for that school for years and years that we sold away at the lowest bidder with little to no transparency. And that's disturbing. We've asked for transparency. The Quad City Times have asked for transparency, and they're not being very forthcoming, which makes it look like the entire deal was questionable. So with that, it is a slap in the face to the taxpayers. It's a slap in the face to the kids because that money could have turned around and we could have continued adding to our tax base for it. We could have, which it goes into the general fund for the teachers and the kids, but we removed that for decades now. So no, I would not have agreed to a $30,000 selling of a building. I would have gone with a higher price. Thank you.
Gene Guy.
I would disagree that the 30,000 is acceptable. However, just because it's a higher price, 700,000, 900,000, doesn't make that a good deal either, because of maybe the lack of financing that the person has, or how long it's going to take to close, or what they're going to do with it. I think all those things come into play. There's a lot of questions, and that's the problem with this deal that was made. There's too many questions. If this had been out in the open, put out, maybe there's a legitimate reason. As far as selling a piece of property to the government for $1, that's, I think, a whole different can of worms, because you get something back ultimately from the government. You'll get space, you'll get location for a future expansion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all in all, I think the board has to do their due diligence as well as the individual that's buying the property.
Linda Hayes.
Although I did not vote on that particular deal, I do understand that there has been a lot of requests and there is a lot of questions as far as transparency is concerned. We've consulted with the attorneys as far as this goes. That information will be released. However, at this particular time, it's not. The $30,000 for that money does not go into the general account. That goes into the PEPAL account for building and repairs of different buildings. With the comparison to the Roosevelt building, all of those, it's almost the same. The Roosevelt building did have community-related activities in there, and thus will be the school. With down in that area of town, I don't know how many have driven through that area. However, everything's been taken down, including the houses. Those people in that area do not have a lot of transportation, do not have a lot of means in order to gain transportation. Third shift daycare is a great asset in that particular community, as well as some of the other services that will be down in there, including venues to keep students off the streets, as far as evening programs to keep them busy, tutoring, and things that will actually benefit student achievement.
Jenner Keeley.
I wouldn't want to speculate what went on in those meetings. We don't have all of the information. I can't say, given what I know, that I would have agreed to sell the building for $30,000. That being said, there are a group of people in our community that want to go forward and do good in this neighborhood. And while we're still fighting and arguing about this issue, I say that those who want to work should get to work, and those who want to stand it and argue should step aside and let people get to work.
Craig Piggott.
I come to this with a little different perspective, because I actually looked at purchasing the building at one time with a buddy of mine, and the prospect of that building had many different opportunities, whether it was a small business incubator or whether it was just exactly what it's going to be used for. I think the biggest problem that we have, and I think it's that we need to look at throughout the school board itself, is that we didn't have, nor do we have at any meeting, any kind of reflection back about what is anybody's general thoughts. We come up to the table, we say what our thoughts are, and then there's no reflection back from the board. My thought process is, and this is what we don't do currently, even with the teachers and all the different issues that we're in front of right now, is we don't have any direct response back other than we hear all hearsay. We can all be armchair quarterbacks to this thing, and whether it's the right thing or what's the wrong thing. I've purchased an old building that was trying to sell for $750,000, and I bought it for $275,000. It's only worth what it's been brought to the table. The thing is that what needs to happen, especially when it's everybody's money that we're dealing with, there needs to be the potential of a little bit more talk, a little bit more conversation of what's happening, how it's going down, and maybe even comes to a situation where there's a vote. There, because the problem is everybody can be an armchair quarterback to situations.
Carrie Dugan.
I oppose the sale of Lincoln School for $30,000. I think that we need to kind of look through what we're all kind of agreeing on, most of us are agreeing on, the lack of transparency and things like this. That's blatantly clear. There was no transparency on this. Dan has, looked at affecting the classroom. Every decision that the school board makes impacts the classroom, but we carelessly make decisions all of the time. So we need to look at every decision, every sale, everything we're doing to impact the classroom. And also, in addition, I think that moving forward, what we need to do is we need to push as a community for a forensic audit. We don't know where the money's going. We don't know who's benefiting from this sale. We need to find out. Thank you.
All right, the next question tonight. The topic is declining enrollment. Davenport Community School District has experienced declining enrollment for a number of years now. Specifically, as a board member, what do you think, what do you propose should be done as a way of increasing enrollment? And this question will begin with Carrie Dugan.
I think that people will come to a district where they know their kid is going to get a good education, where they know there's opportunities, and where they know that people are treated fairly. Unfortunately, right now, the statistics show that we do not have that, and so of course people are not going to come. People aren't going to come places where they're struggling with ableism and racism and poverty. We're struggling with people hiding money, giving money to their friends. Of course they're not going to come. We need to improve the school we have, work hard. We need to bring in experts from outside, get a school climate evaluation, and let experts help get us back on track.
Karen.
I think Davenport Schools gets the short stick when it comes to the press. What gets covered is the negative news, and that's what people out there in the public are seeing, and that's what they're making their decisions on. There are a lot of great opportunities in this district. The dual enrollment program, the welding program. There's so many programs out there that people aren't aware of. And I think we need to do a better job of communicating the positives of this district. We need to make sure people know this is a great place and that you should send your kids here instead of just what you see in the press, students getting arrested or fights or things like that. We're not doing enough to market our positives.
Michael Duvall.
School district will have to deal with the declining enrollment with as many neighborhoods that are moving out of Davenport. The school board needs to address it with Davenport, that we need to work together. We need to make Davenport a place that is great for the kids, great for families, a place that people want to go. Davenport schools are great. They were wonderful for me. I look forward to my children's time in the district. It is a good place. There are a lot of negative raps that Davenport gets, especially compared to our other cities that are near us. Often people will send their kids to private schools. Some families that are purchasing homes will move outside of the city just to get away. We need to really communicate with the cities, let them know that as a school board and as a school, we have great opportunities. A lot of our children go on to be very successful and lead great lives.
Jenner Keeley.
Davenport does offer a lot of good for our current students. There are many, many teachers that are totally dedicated to their students and their education. We need to be providing more teacher support, more classroom support. We need to address the inequities given to our students. But we really do need to highlight all the good that the Davenport schools are doing for our community.
Mark Holloway.
I believe Davenport Schools has had in the past a public relations problem. In reality, we have some great schools here. We have award-winning music programs. We have engaging sports and athletic programs. We have nursing programs, welding programs, college credit programs. We have excellent green programs, conservation programs. But most of all, David, we have high-achieving students. Students that are scoring well on their ACT, students that are prepared for college when they leave, students who are going out in the community and starting businesses and being good employees. And so we need to promote that more. No one's going to be attracted to poverty and crime, but we are a lot more than that. We have a lot going on in the city and in our school district. And if we can celebrate that and promote that, I think the rest take care of itself.
Kent Postian.
Our children received a fantastic education from the Davenport system. They had fantastic teachers. Our grandchildren that are now attending are getting a fantastic education. I agree with Karen. Sometimes the news media focuses on the negative, and there's so many positive things going on in the district. And I have a grandson that's a sophomore at West now, just loves it. The diversification is great. Really loves the teachers. So I think there's a lot going on. As far as the declining enrollment, this is something that all districts are going to deal with. They may not be dealing with it right now, but it's going to come. It's going to come down the road. You know, it's just going to happen.
Lori Yankee.
As far as how to handle the declining enrollment, excuse me, people will come to schools that are great districts. And we do have some phenomenal things going on in our district, from the Arts Academy to dual enrollment to the 13 career paths. I believe it's 13. I mean, we have some awesome opportunities for our students, but it's not awesome opportunities for all our students. We should be looking at our areas that are making the news, everything from racism to poverty to our issues in special education, and trying to help overcome this, correct this. If we have a phenomenal school, we don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, district. We will not have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing. People will come here because it's good. I have 3 children still in the Davenport School District. I talk to many parents on a daily basis beyond Davenport and within Davenport. And yes, there are phenomenal success stories, but all of our students should be phenomenal success stories. And until they are, we will keep losing students and throwing money out the door on marketing that could be spent to make this correction. Thank you.
Linda Hayes.
I do agree with what some of the candidates have said, especially Karen and Ken. With our audit that we're currently going through now, I do feel that that's basically assisting us in starting from the bottom, working up. Once you get so far down, Davenport will be a model district once everything has been completed and we're back on track. I feel with the publicity that we've received, a lot of it has not been fair. A lot of it has been negative publicity. Sometimes we're in here with 2 or 3 people from the community in here and miss some of the great opportunities and the things that are going on within the district. The negative news is always published. It's the juicy news that people want to hear. But when you have, we just received a Green Award just last week, and there was no media here to cover that. There's only a few people in the nation that are awarded that, and Davenport won that. So we do have some nice things that are going on, but they're not being celebrated enough. I do feel the funding issue is something that we're working through, but once all of this gets done, we have positive marketing, positive media, then we're able to see the district thrive. I don't know that families are as large as they have been in the past, so declining enrollment will take place. If there's no babies being born, no babies will be in the schools, and once they're graduating, we've lost them.
Kai Dickman.
The district has some excellent programs, and I think it's important that we make sure that everyone's aware of what's available and what the great work that the students do. I think it would be good if we could use social media probably to demonstrate better the work that the students are doing. It's kind of up to the district really to get that information out there, because it's not necessarily going to make the news. But that's not really enough, because there are real issues that have to be addressed as well. And the racial inequality and the issues with special education have to be addressed. Otherwise, that's going to continue to overshadow any good work that's being done.
Craig Pickett.
I feel like the declining enrollment is a big issue because I feel like that our school system doesn't do enough marketing. This is, unfortunately, it's a business, and unless you have a widget, you have to market. And when you even have a widget, when you're marketing, people need to know about it. We have so many of those. I mean, in every direction that we look, whether it be the school programs or whether it be just, the great involvement that people have within the community, all these different things. People are leaving our school system because they can go to a safer place. People are leaving our school system because their kids aren't being threatened, and the kids aren't being put in positions every day where there's all these different things that aren't happening at Pleasant Valley, maybe Bettendorf, some of these outlying schools. I mean, people are even doing it where they're transferring to smaller schools. So I feel like that marketing is going to be a huge tool for us. I feel like that working partnership with companies, union trades, all those types of things are going to be huge tools for us. And then empowering our kids and our teachers to, allow us to move forward with those things. Those are going to be the ones that are going to actually make this happen. So chasing that marketing is a huge tool, because we have these things in front of us.
Katarina Bolton.
I don't think we can market the issues out of the school district. Marketing is a great thing to have, and I think we do need to highlight some of our great programs. We do have very great programs, excellent things happening in the district, but until we actually work on the underlying issues, the article that came out not too long ago from the QC Times that showed employment was up, but poverty was at an all-time high. That's here in our district. That's our kids in our classrooms. That's support for our teachers in the classroom that they don't have, support from administrators that they don't have. Priority not given to those issues that are happening in our district. The school doesn't exist in a vacuum. So while we hear the negative things, that's the life that some of us unfortunately have to live. It might be hard to hear, but that's our kids that are experiencing these issues that people are talking about. So yes, we hear the negative things, but unfortunately that's the reality that some of us have to actually live with. So, and again, these issues have been talked about before, as far as like the citations. There was a committee of the whole meeting where leadership said, well, we've worked through these citations before decades ago. And so until we actually do something to change what we're actually doing instead of rebranding the district, we're not going to get anywhere. We're never going to be able to address that issue of declining enrollment until we actually do the hard work to address those issues.
Gene Guy.
I believe with a lot of what a lot of people have said, and that is we haven't really told our story, and it's a good story. I remember moving here in the early 70s. All I heard was how good the Davenport School District was and how good the Iowa school districts are. And I don't hear that anymore. When I decided to do this thing with the school board, I talked to a lot of people, and they just do not see the positiveness that I saw when I moved here, 30, 40 years ago. As far as marketing concerned, you can't expect the press to do it because they're not. I believe strongly that our administrators, our department heads, our people need to get out and maybe buddy up with an alderman when they do their monthly meetings so they can talk about the positive things that you talked about. And when they go to PTA meetings and wherever people congregate, the people do not know what's good about this organization, the school districts of Davenport, Iowa. And the only way that's going to happen is when we get off our chairs and go out and tell them.
Dan Gosey.
I think it's a recurring theme with kind of what everybody's saying. I do know, we do need to market ourselves better, all the good things that are happening in our district. We need to partner with the media, with realtors. When realtors are selling houses, they're telling people to buy them in Eldridge, Bettendorf, Pleasant Valley, because of the school districts. So we definitely need to work on that. We need to celebrate the good things that we're doing. We got a great creative arts academy. We started changing the mindset that not every kid has to go to college. There's pathways to trades and other things like that. So we're kind of setting our students up for success. I do believe that we do need to address the things that were brought out in the Phase 2 audit and work to fix those things to make our district better. It's like a business. Stuff changes. You need to roll with the times and evolve and keep updating things and keep working to be better. You can always be better, so we just need to keep working at that. I'm going to close it at that.
All right, our next question tonight. Schools throughout Iowa are experiencing achievement gaps, especially among students of color and those low-income families. Specifically, what course of action do you propose to help close that gap? First, Kent Postian.
Well, first of all, something I wanted to point out before is we can't just rely on the school district to solve all the problems. A child is in that school building for 6, maybe 7 hours. And the rest of the time, they're at home or wherever, okay? So, again, we can't just dump this on the teachers. Oh, my kid isn't achieving in school because the teacher isn't spending enough time with them. I think that the school district has over 400 paras in the district to help with that, and that's a lot of paras in the district to assist with some of the kids that are falling behind, and I think that's one area that we continue to work on, but again, we only have that child for so many hours during the day.
Linda Hayes.
Right now, according to the funding that we're offered, just couple years ago, it just started where it was mandatory for children to start the pre-K program. I feel I need to start earlier than that. I feel that we need to somehow get some programs devised to encourage parenting classes to work with their children. By the time their children get to pre-K, that they should have some type of foundation set. With the children of color, with them, if that's taught right away, babies learn from the womb. 3rd grade is way too late to get some of that. They've lost so much. By the time they're 5, some of those cells are gone that they're not even able to utilize them anymore. And I just feel that we need to somehow communicate this to family members to let them know that you need to start earlier with the children. And the school is not set up for daycare. You come to school and it's basically attached to what you have already learned. And I think that starts in the home mainly, and we need to get that information to parents, and even if we need to get some type of classes going for them to learn some of these skills, that is certainly worth investing in.
Craig Pickett.
I guess the gap in regards to race, I think that sometimes when we over promote the fact that there is this huge gap between blacks and whites, or whether it's another origin, whether it be sex, race, creed, whatever it is, I think we can overstate that, which also causes all this rhetoric that's going on. I think the biggest thing that we need to do with these kids is we need to, first of all, create a basis of respect. These kids nowadays have lack of respect in many different regards, whether it be talking back to the parents and there's no consequence for it. When I was a kid, and it wasn't, that awful long ago, I mean, we had situations where if we went to the principal's office, we were as scared as if you were going down to the police station. And right now, these kids have absolutely no consequence for that. What is that? I don't know that. I have people that work for me that make great wages, and they can break everything that I own, but it's also boils down to what they come to work with every single day, and that's respect for you as an individual, whether it's respect for your equipment, and then same in regards to the teachers. These kids, and we need to, the way we need to bridge this gap is empowering these teachers to have the clout that they do, and help them contractually make sure that these things happen. That's the only way it's going to happen.
Karen Klein-Jerome.
I think the district needs to look at a program that has proven success. They need to implement it, fully implement it, and they need to stick with it instead of hopping around from program to program, trying to find something that's going to work, but not fully letting it play out. I also think parents need to be fully involved in their child's education, and if they're not willing to do it, then we need to seek out mentors that can work with these students, make that connection, and make sure that they understand this is important. This is a lifetime commitment. High expectations. You don't let a student off because they are from a poor family or a bad background. I think you still need to focus on, everybody needs to achieve, and you need to hold everyone accountable.
Jenner Keeley.
We need to encourage our families more in our community to be engaged in the schools, starting early on. I work in the world of early education. I deal with families who, from birth, have some delays, and we look to educate those families early on. Those kids receive education from day one. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Lori Yankee.
Well, I would start with kind of launching off what others said. They are in the classroom, 6-7 hours a day. To close the achievement gap, I would really be taking a look at trauma-informed care. A lot of these kids are coming from, when you're talking poverty especially, they are coming to school with a lot of baggage that maybe other children do not. And with that, we know from a 2010 audit that was performed here within the district that there is an implicit bias that children that are poor, disabled, and minority, that the bar is not set as high. We know this from a 2010 audit. It was supposed to have been gone forward and dealt with from there, and it wasn't. It dropped after we hired that superintendent. So what I think, and it's been proven, and I agree with dropping the program hopping because we never really see how it plays out, but I think we should be going towards a trauma-informed care basis, because sometimes school is the safe place for these kids. It's the place where they feel comfortable, and maybe that's where they get their meal, and I think we could bridge a lot of gaps with that, along with that community engagement. Thank you.
Kai Dickman.
I think it's important that we encourage family involvement early on. But I also think that something we could do is look into what grants or organizations might be available to provide additional after-school programs so that students that need additional assistance or resources could go and take advantage of those.
Carrie Dugan.
I think we need to do.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Jean Guy.
I agree with what Linda Hayes said a little bit ago. I'm not sure how in real life that would happen, but I think that's where it has to start, and that is preschool. I think there's an old saying that I grew up on a farm, and they said, "So it begins, so it will be." In other words, the first row straight, then probably the 10th or the 20th or the 30th or whatever row will be straight. But it's got to start very, very early. And all the time that I spent in the schools, mostly elementary schools, they are absolutely phenomenal. The last place we need to make cuts is in L-Ed, I think. Also, we have to add help to the elementary teachers via the paraeducators and volunteers and that sort of thing. The classes that I see did not have a black-white problem. It didn't even cross my mind until I started hearing about it, because when I was in those classes, there was no such thing. They didn't care. Nobody cared. And kids, I've learned a long time ago, when young kids, they don't recognize white or black. They just go my buddy or my friend. It has nothing to do with color. And that's where it's got to start.
Now, Carrie Dugan.
I think we need to start off strong by stop trying to rebrand racism. We can't market these problems away. We have to acknowledge them. And like Director Hayes said, we have started that. We've put our foot in the door. We've had Sharika Hawley come in, do some professional development. So we're starting to do tiny things, but we need our community to back us. We can't rebrand this. Our community needs to believe that there is a real problem, and we need to move forward. And I think that it is about respect. We need to have respect for every single child in our schools, and we need to give them what they need, the quality instruction they need. Amy Williamson with the Department of Education told us to look to literacy to end this gap. Look to literacy. 80% of all people with learning disabilities have dyslexia. Most of the prisoners in our jails have dyslexia. That is the most common literacy disability that there is. Yet we don't have a program for it up and going. We need to address literacy. That's the problem.
Mark Holloway.
I believe the achievement gap is a very complicated issue, but I believe it's almost a three-legged stool that I think we should be looking at. First of all, I think it would be great if we could have more teachers of color in our district. Role models are important. To be able to look and come to school and see someone who looks like you, who's being successful, is an important thing for a student to have. And also, I've done some diversity and inclusion training, and it's one thing to say, okay, come to school, Johnny, we're going to try to fit you into what we're trying to do. And that's another thing to say that this classroom, this school is made for you. We need to have classrooms that are made for a very diverse group of students, because we have a very diverse district. And so if we come in with that mindset that we're going to find a way for everyone to learn, we're going to be able to include everyone's history and what is being taught, I think that'll help tremendously. The second leg of that stool is family. I was successful in school, in St. Louis, primarily because my parental involvement. And as we are going to hold teachers and principals to high standards, I believe it's equally fair to encourage parents to say, hey, you have a part to play in this as well. We need you to make sure that your son or your daughter is doing their homework.
Thank you. Katarina Bolton.
So I think we do need, we do need early intervention in literacy, and we do need it implemented district-wide without the program hopping. It needs to be implemented district-wide, and it needs to be implemented with consistency and the communication to the entire teachers and school staff, you know, whomever it's going to be delivering that. We do have a diverse community, but it's not inclusive. We haven't built that space for our Black teachers or for our Black students. And I do think trauma informed, going back to compassion, right now I think that we have there's certain kids that are not worthy of an education because of the way that they may project, but we're not really getting to those underlying issues that they're having. We have kids that are in special ed that are in 6th and 7th grade and they can't read more than a couple words. Those interventions and those programs that are supposed to be there for kids that are in special education, those federal funds that are supposed to go to them, they're not being utilized, and we don't have enough staff to help implement those programs to those individual students. So early intervention with literacy and trauma-informed practices, bring back that compassion.
Michael Duvall.
I see Davenport as having the opportunity to have diversity like the real world. We're going to have achievement gaps out there. We see teachers trying really hard every day to connect with the students. What we need is more accountability by the parents. Achievement gaps are going to be all over the place. Anytime we have a student that is falling behind, the teachers are out there speaking with the kids, working with the kids, closing that gap. When that doesn't work, we need the district to step forward, speak with the parents, bring the parents in. If the parents are unwilling, that's when the Davenport needs to go forward. Do we need mentors? Who else can we fill in when the parents let us down?
Dan Gosa.
So the achievement gap, we have had a lot of discussions on this, right? To start off with, to be able to reach a child to make sure they're learning, you have to understand their background, where they're coming from. I mean, they might not have the best home life, right? They might come to school hungry, and that's the only place they eat is at school. And what happens when you go to work, you forget breakfast or wherever, you're hungry and you're not really focused on things, right? I think that's some key areas. And sometimes their parents might be working 2 or 3 jobs. They're not at home to help them with their homework, okay? That's a reality. I do love that our district has the app. My wife is all about that. She's on there every day checking our kids to make sure they're doing their homework and everything else. But we're able to do that. You know, some people don't have a phone. Some people don't have those things. I think we overlook that a lot of times. Some of these kids have so much stacked against them that when they are in the classroom, they're more worried about everything else. And I do believe that is how that achievement gap keeps, getting wider until we can, I keep looking at these, until we can kind of figure out a way to figure out where the kids are, obviously the teachers, when they come in, they kind of know, and we just got to be able to figure out a way to reach that, to be able to connect to that student, to get those barriers out of the way. I got it in.
All right, our next question, and a number of questions that we've gotten in from the audience pertains to this, or a form of this. The next question: what abilities and experiences do you bring to the table that would assist with making difficult financial and budgetary decisions? An example would be reducing staff or closing a school. We begin with Craig Piggott.
This is almost like a softball question for me because I deal with this all the time. I'm a seasonal company that has to take 26 guys and route them down to about 7 when it comes to wintertime. So dealing with budgets and timelines and dollars and everything like that is something that I deal with all the time, and it's not easy. Sometimes things are done financially because of personalities. Sometimes it's done for the aspect of the better of the business. And sometimes you have to make a lot of decisions that you don't really want to. Unfortunately, this school board has probably been faced with a lot of it, and looking at their $3 million deficit and what do we do? How do we take more away from it? Well, a lot of times maybe it's not a situation where you're taking away, and how do we boost it? We're right now we're reactive. We need to be proactive in what we're doing. my business and dealing with the situations that I have. If I want to chase work down in Florida, if I want to chase work in different areas to get my revenue up, if I want to chase a different avenue of how we're doing work, those are all on me. And this school board and the school district is no different. I mean, and I feel like going back to the marketing situation, that would be a huge tool for us to get these students back so we can get these dollars back.
Karen Klein-Jerome.
It is going to be a tough decision. The district's got to cut $8 million. The state has said, we're not going to keep letting you overspend what the spending authority is. And I did sit in on the staff cuts last year when 83 teachers were laid off, just to make sure the contract was followed and that the right teachers were identified. It's not an easy decision. It's not easy to sit there and see 83 teachers who are going to get pink slipped. But in reality, this district doesn't have a choice anymore. And they need to make some major cuts, $8 million. And we've been nickel and diming things. I think teachers and the students basically have taken the biggest hit in these cuts. They've been laid off. Their class sizes have increased. And I think it's time that we back away from hitting always the teacher and the classroom and the students and look at where we can find how we're going to cut $8 million.
Katarina Bolton.
So I believe that before we really dive into making more of the budget cuts and school closings or what have you, is that we do need to have an in-depth audit of the financial situation. There's been many times where, as in the 2018 audit and the Phase 2 audit, show that there's Title II funds or there's other funds that are being used inappropriately, used for paying for salary when it's supposed to be used for special professional development. So there's things and pockets that are being spent that maybe shouldn't be. Budget numbers don't add up when the district goes to the SBRC, when they make their proposal to the district or to the state of how they're going to cut. And I do think that we do need to stop and making those cuts that impact our teachers and our students in the classroom. So we need to look at some difficult situations as far as where else can we make those budget cuts? How many staff do we have in XYZ that's doing the same thing? I don't know if it would be appropriate that it's in, certain administrative departments, but we're just kind of moving them around and not really making cuts there, but we're making extreme cuts with teachers.
Thank you. Michael Duvall.
Dealing with the budget's going to be a difficult thing. We have, with such a low enrollment, we want to make sure we are not cutting the teachers. We really have to make sure that we're spending our dollars on our students, not on the buildings, not on administrative staff, but right in those areas that directly involve every student. We need to make sure that all teachers do have full classrooms. We make sure that every student is accounted for.
Linda Hayes.
As everyone has acknowledged, these are very tough decisions. It actually looks a little different depending on what side of the table you sit on what cuts you need to make, and also keeping students in mind when you make these cuts. This last year has been extremely difficult in making decisions on what and what not to cut. We're gracious and thankful right now that the SBRC has granted us an additional year to make these cuts. When we discuss closing school buildings, which would be a big chunk at one time, the boardroom was packed with opposition as opposed to what school would be cut and when. But we've come to the realization that there's no way around it. You know, we can look at programs, we can look at all sorts of things, and working with the monies that we have. Of course, we do did receive that additional $5 last year, but there's still quite a bit that we need to receive in order to have the funds that are necessary. So basically, what we're doing right now is we're doing the best thing that we can with what we have. And again, with the closing of the school, that would help a lot of the situations right now. But the community is not ready for that. And that's one of the tough decisions that's going to need to be made within the next year or so.
Mark Holloway.
Cutting $8 million or more is a really tough thing to grasp, but I kind of look at it as an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity for Davenport to right-size itself. You know, what is going to provide the most value to our students? Living within our means is very important. I'm a father. I've had to make decisions. I've had to have tough cuts. I've had things happen that were unexpected that caused my budget to go out of whack. And so we are going to have to make some tough decisions, but we need to make those decisions with the idea in mind that when we're done, that we can sustain ourselves, that we can continue to grow, that we are not going to overspend money that we don't have. That way we can continue our success and continue to be a quality district.
Kent Poston.
I've helped run a family farm operation for the last 46 years with my brother, son, and nephew. And we're constantly having to address and make adjustments, whether it's because of weather, because of prices, but we've always got to try to meet that budget and live within our means. We have a number of employees that work for us, and so we're also constantly working with employee relations. Our grandchildren represent seventh generation on our farm, and so it's taken a lot of hard work and budgeting to get to where we've been. And I think as far as the school district is concerned, it can be done. You know, it's just living within your means. You've got so many dollars in this pot, and that's all you can spend. And so you're going to have to make the adjustments and then move on.
Kai Dickman.
As others have said, it is definitely a tough decision on what to cut. No one likes to have to remove programs or close schools, but the state dictates how much we're able to spend, and so we have to work within that amount. And it would be a matter, I think, of evaluating what's working, gathering as much information about it, and trying to determine what would be the best to reduce. Something I think that would really be necessary is to have an outside evaluation of the district and its finances so that we can really fully understand where money is being spent and get recommendations, outside recommendations on where cuts could be made.
Jenner Keeley.
So for the last 5 years, I've been the treasurer payable for Davenport Central Band Orchestra parents. And it was really important to us to only spend what we were able to bring in for our program. We had to look at where our dollars were going to have the biggest impact for our students. When we have to cut this much money for the budget, not all of our decisions are going to be popular. They're not going to be easy, but it has to be done when we look at all the areas of the district to see where we can cut with minimal impact to our students.
Gene Guy.
I also have worked with budgets and P&Ls for the last about 40 years before I retired, so I understand that. The problem is when you make cuts, you can make dumb cuts. You can make cuts in an area that that will help you dig out of the rut, the hole that you're in.
Excuse me.
And I want to go back to something that was said earlier, is that if we're going to make it better and sell ourselves to the public, better than we have to date is we're going to have to start preschool or maybe preschool and go to that elementary. We can't cut in the area that ultimately is going to make us healthy. The other thing is I've talked to a lot of older people, and there's a statistic running around here that says 83% of the population that pay our taxes have no children or have never had children in the Davenport Public Schools. How can you expect these people to help you in a financial way if they don't understand what and the wheres and the whys of what you're doing? Goes back to you can call it marketing if you want. We have to get off our chairs and go out and tell them about the positives. And the people that's ultimately going to help us financially are the ones that's going to have to be told what we're doing that's positive.
Lori Yankee.
I believe the question was asking about ability. So just to kind of give you a little bit about my background, I am a federal worker, and schools are not a business and they are not a farm. They are based off of tax dollars. They are a government entity. They are run completely off of your tax dollars. So I have a little bit of an understanding when it comes to that, because with tax dollars comes huge responsibility, as I am reminded every day when I walk into work. And it also comes with bureaucracy, unfortunately. So when we jump back to the last year's budget, when it was presented, the accounting firm that presented it listed 17 government accounting standards that were red flags, that were wrong. And no one was rattled by it except for me. And maybe that's just because of my background, but that's a huge issue right there. So before I would ever look at any type of serious cuts, the first thing I would demand would be a forensic audit. We've had issues, and it's $11 million that we are paying back. That the SBRC on the 15th said that they revoked our 2-year and 5-year plan to kind of redo that because the numbers were off. So, and honestly, going forward, every time we've made a cut, it has been impacted by the teachers and the students, over classroom size, overworked teachers. So we would cut nothing until we knew exactly where we stood financially, because that's our responsibility, not only to the teachers and students, but to the taxpayers.
Carrie Dugan.
Kind of piggybacking right on what Lori is saying, we don't know where the money is. We don't know where the money lies. We don't know who spent the money and who they gave it to. So what we need to find out is how much money do we have and what do we need to do with it? None of us sitting up here are qualified to run a $200 million budget. If we were, we would have applied for Dr. Kobilski's position. Yep. We need to get professionals in here. We need a forensic audit with implementation advice from an independent firm. Thank you.
Dan Gosa.
Budget cuts are hard. When I started, I didn't have any gray hair. My wife loves to point out all the gray hair I have now. It's stressful. These are real people that you're talking about, and when we're looking at things, one thing and I've always asked for is a list of every employee, their job scope, what they do, different things like that, so we can kind of determine this versus that. Another thing too, they're hard decisions. They really are. I mean, when you sit and talk about if it's closing a school, how are you going to impact that neighborhood? What is it going to do to those students, staff in that building? All things like that. You have to take a lot of things into account. And we do have a tough road ahead. There's no sugarcoating that at all. I guess I deal with budgets, obviously, with this, with my Little League and stuff like that. We try to spend within reason for what we need. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, our next question tonight has to do with discipline in our schools. Recently, there have been a number of incidents, altercations in our schools between students and also between students and staff or security personnel. What should be done to address this behavior by students, and how would you ensure disciplinary action is taken consistently? We begin with Craig Pickett.
It's a tough subject because first of all, you would love for you to be able to, you know, make them accountable in some way. I mean, and in my opinion, what we have to do is we have to bring the parents back into the schools and make them accountable for the children that they're raising at home. And so my thought is that through the discipline actions, you know, maybe we make a parent come into a classroom and spend some time, an hour. You know, I mean, if the only way you're going to get this done is through the parenting, because right now, unless you make it so that it's contractual for the teachers, they have no power. If you don't make it an ability for somebody to put their foot down in this, you will get nowhere. So the thing that you have to do is you have to get parents involved. PTA and the teachers should be hand in hand with everything that they're doing. So how do you do that? Because everybody's not going to volunteer. You know, I mean, maybe there's incentives that you can bring to businesses that would allow people to come and spend time in their classrooms for an hour. You know, and whether it's and you know, you highlight those businesses that do it. The other thing is maybe you take these parents that have bad children, bring them in there, see what their children are doing, or putting them in another classroom that is
Thank you.
disruptive.
Kent Postion.
Well, I'm concerned for the teachers and disruption in the classrooms. I think it makes it tough for them to teach and work with the students that, you know, want to be there. When a child walks through those doors of the school building in the morning, and I don't care what social economic background they're from, there's rules, okay? So you walk through the door, there's rules. You follow those rules and you'll be fine, okay? I think that's fairly simple. Just follow the rules, do what you're supposed to do, and then leave for the day at the end of the day. If that doesn't work, then yes, get the parents involved. But there has to be consequences, because otherwise this isn't going to stop. It's just going to keep going on and on and on. And then when you talk about people not wanting to come to the district or buy a house in the district, this is the reason why.
Linda Hayes.
I do agree that all students need to be held accountable. When students come into the schools each morning, we have no idea what their last 24 hours have been like. I feel when something happens, first of all, get to the root of the problem. Figure out what it is. Sometimes your tone and your diction can make the situation much worse than what it actually is. I feel if everyone is treated with respect and everyone held accountable, that we should see some type of change. When we're faced with expulsion hearings, anyone that has been in there with me are well aware that I do not allow students to leave without telling them what they've done, how they're going to be held accountable, and what to do next. Every time we have an encounter with students, we need to use that as a learning experience, a teaching time that we can give them some information that they can take away. In 9 out of 10 of them, I've never had a student to say what I'm telling them is not right. They could have done something different. I think rather than right away, and again, I don't want it misunderstood to say that I'm accepting it, but before it's accepted, we need to get to the root of the problem and figure that out and then work from there. And parents cannot be made to come into classrooms, but again, maybe some type of incentive to allow them to work with us will help.
Thank you. Karen Klein-Jerome.
I've heard from lots of teachers on this issue in the last couple of years. Disrupted students take away from the learning of the other students in the classroom. And if you have to stop and deal with that one student, there's 24 others sitting there not getting the education they deserve. I think that the state has also tied teachers' hands by saying you will never remove a student from class. So you're getting cussed at, or there's fights going on, or desks being flipped over, but you're not supposed to remove that student. We need to look at a policy where, and I'm not talking about, putting them in a closet or a room, but somehow they need to be removed. There are instances where teachers have had to take the 24 students out into the hallway and leave the one student who is so disruptive behind. That just impacted 24 kids. So I think we really need to look at this policy and how we're going to deal with it, and to say to never remove a student. If they're a danger to the others, they're taking away the learning opportunities of all the other students. We're not benefiting all students, so we need to look at it.
Kai Dickman.
I think it is important to look for the root cause of issues. We don't want to just allow these issues to keep occurring. If it's possible to work with the student, work with the parents, and try and actually get to the cause and identify why it's been happening and why it may be reoccurring, to try and actually get that corrected. It's also then sort of important, I think, for the district to also review the discipline actions that they've taken over time, just to ensure that they're being applied fairly.
Michael Duvall.
The student that causes disruptions, they do put a change on the day. It just disturbs the whole school. The kids will talk about it in class, in the hall. My kids come home and tell me about other actions that have happened in school. We need to make sure the kids know our expectations, the teachers, the principals, the parents. Let them know that what they're doing is unacceptable. If a student is being disruptive, we do need to get them to the side, get them out of the classroom, do not disrupt them. But we need to be sure that all students are treated equal. There's no kids that have the same thing that let's slide. Some kids we can allow disruptions, other kids we're on them right away. We need to be sure that nobody slips through the crack on this. Also, we need to review all of our discipline that's taken on the students to make sure that the same actions are being taken against each student equally. That would start with the first step with the principals of each school, write up a summary of what happened with them, and explain what action was taken. That way we can be sure that every kid has the same action taken against them regardless of which school they go to.
Gene Guy.
In the years that I volunteered, there's never been a situation where they made a conscious decision to come to school and be disrupted. Something happened during the day. More times than not, what I have found anyway, during those years that I was in the schools, is that they were behind the other kids, and for whatever reason, they would get their attaboys and attagirls, and this person didn't. So this person would act out to get attention, or to find, to somehow make it better in his mind or her mind, and it doesn't. Generally speaking, I think that's where para-educators come in. So teachers know who those 2 or 3 or 4 kids are. They can go work with them one-on-one, give them an opportunity to change their direction a little bit, and while that para then could work with the rest of the class. The teacher can get them started, and the para can let it continue. You're not asking the para to teach your class for you. You're just asking them to maintain it and let the teacher do what they do best, and that's work with those issues. And this, one other thing is, I think there's some mental health, sociology, and need to be involved. Maybe the parent needs to come in, and maybe it's a community service kind of thing. You do that when you break the law on the outside. You have to have community service. So maybe if a student does something bad, the parent has to come in as community service and work with that child.
A reminder to the candidates to make sure your mics are on and that you are speaking into them. Next question, the next response, Dan Gosa.
So along the lines of discipline, I mean, this is an issue. We see it for expulsion hearings. I do agree with a lot of the things that Karen has said. The state does have your hands tied so much with what you can and can't do. I do believe it would be beneficial to have the teachers involved in a discussion for the part with the administration as well as the board to come up with some administration regulations to kind of help with this, as well as board policies put in place to kind of support this stuff. And then there's a whole lot of issues with discipline because security staff, they don't know what they should do because they don't know if they're going to get fired if they do this, that, or the other, because there's not really a fine, definite answer on a lot of these things. There's a lot of different variables. There are root causes. Obviously, something happened during the day or it happened the night before, or however, and these kids hold on to this stuff, and then they bring it to school with them, and it does, and it interrupts the class. You're disrupting the other kids that are trying to learn, and it's messing me up. I'll leave it at that.
Katarina Bolton.
So all of our students are worthy of an education. We need to make sure we have developmentally appropriate expectations of our students. Our teachers need more resources in their classroom. There is a difference of interpretation of, after the state got involved, of who can be sent outside of the classroom and how long they can be sent out of the classroom. It essentially does tie teachers' hands, but it's different at each building as far as how they interpret that. Suspension or expelling is kind of like giving a kid a vacation, because then they're not back in and they're not learning from what they did. So we need to have some kind of different approach outside of the zero discipline, because that's obviously not working and it hasn't been working. So something along the lines that gives that student accountability for what has happened, whether that's restorative justice or something else. And again, getting to those underlying issues. Kids can do well if they can. And again, with this audit, the impact that it's had is generational. It's going to be a long time before this can be really kind of figured out. Those students that, thousands of students that were impacted by the audit did not get the resources. That is why we've had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for comp ed, because they didn't get the resources that they were needing. So early intervention, resources inside the classroom for the teachers and for the students.
Lori Yankee.
Kind of jumping off of what Katarina said, a lot of this, what we've done for the last several years, however many years you'd like to go back, it's clearly not working. We need to make a change, and zero tolerance obviously is not working. And if it's pulling kids out of the classroom, it might be a child that's already behind, and then they are further behind. And as she said, suspensions and expulsions, they're not really teaching a kid anything. I think we should be leaning towards giving our teachers more tools to work with within the classroom. I think we should be looking at restorative justice. I will go right back to trauma-informed care, because a lot of those kids are coming in with issues. And it's not right that it falls upon the school, but it does, because they're there for 6 hours. And when you start pulling kids out of the classroom like that, you're looking at hindering their free, appropriate public education too. So it's this very fine line that we have to walk. As far as consistency in policy, we can have the most wonderful policy, but until we start making it, until we start holding the administration accountable to ensure across the board, across the district, that it's being implemented properly, we won't see it. So that's where I would look at my accountability and consistency. Thank you.
Jenner Keeley.
So part of what the audit showed was that not all information from the district was being given across the board to all the staff, and staff is left not knowing what their options are. I've heard from many teachers that they're frustrated that the district enacts policies without teacher input. We need to reach out to those teachers and find out what it is that they need to make their classrooms more successful. We need to work on holding our students to a higher level of accountability and expectations, and we need to look for and enact policies that have shown success in the classroom.
Mark Holloway.
Safety in our schools must be one of our top priorities. I participated in a Stop the Violence campaign last year, and there is a lot of pain that these students are bringing to classrooms every day. And so one of the thoughts I may have had, additional ACEs training or they mentioned trauma-informed care may also help as well. I'm not a fan of zero tolerance policies, but I am a fan of having high expectations. I want our students to know what is expected of them when they come into the classroom. And I'm also a proponent of possibly maybe adding a paraeducator to some of the classrooms, just so the teachers know they're not alone and they feel supported.
Carrie Dugan.
I think that as we talk about discipline, we need to definitely support our classroom. Our teachers are only one person in one classroom. They're doing their best. They need support. We need qualified paraeducators. We need plenty of paraeducators. We also need mental health workers and counselors. Last year, when we asked the state and they had authorized the use of reserve funds, we initially discussed counselors and mental health workers. When it came to a vote in front of our school board, that had been stripped from the plan in exchange for policemen. So we need to really look at what is best practice, what's going on in the national scene, and do what our people have found to be best. There are standards called the National School Climate Standards that exist. They are far above the standards that we're holding here. That information is very accessible to all of us, and we need to use it.
Okay, our next question tonight is a question from our audience, and it has to do with scheduling. Block scheduling at the high schools were instituted some years ago. Now students will be transitioning back to a traditional schedule. Which one is correct, and why do you feel that way? Start with Gene Guy.
Thank you. I think the way they moved it back is probably the best way. Our kids and the grandkids all talked about the block. There was just too much freedom, too much time, and a couple of them got in trouble because of it. And so they needed to keep busy. They needed to be actively involved in the educational process and the teachers. And as far as I'm concerned, moving it away from block is a good idea.
Dan Gosa.
Obviously, I thought block was the best way to go. I did vote no for that. I do have a high schooler right now, and going back to traditional, he's not going to be able to do a lot of extracurriculars and be able to do the things that he likes to do, as well as a lot of our other students. And when we were talking about that, I did go out and I asked teachers how they felt about it and students. I felt that before we were made to make that decision, we should have had more input from students, teachers, and parents, because that's who it's going to affect, right? I don't think that was the right decision to go back to traditional. I could be wrong. I did do traditional when I went through, and I wish I would have had more time to do extracurriculars and stuff like that. I mean, there's kids that like to do music. They're able to do more than one music class, a shop class, or whatever the case may be. So I'm all for a block schedule.
Jenner Keeley.
I personally like the block scheduling. For me and my children, block scheduling allowed one of my children who struggled in many subjects to focus on what was hard for them. It would have been nearly impossible for him to focus 7 classes with multiple expectations and assignments that would have been due weekly. It allows kids to have extra time and be involved in more extracurricular activities.
Michael Duvall.
I prefer the traditional scheduling. That's what I went to high school with. That's when I had to deal with interactions with different teachers. It worked best for me. With my students my kids going through school now, I've had a few teachers that did not quite hit it off well with my youngest son. And having a block schedule would have been very bad for him. With a traditional schedule, he's only in the class 45 minutes. He gets his assignments, gets his expectations, but if he butts heads, that day is over with. They can move on to the next teacher.
Kai Dickman.
Both have their pluses and minuses. I probably would have supported sticking with block, but I also had traditional when I was in high school, and I think it works okay. So I think it will we'll make it work, but I think it would have been better to stay with block.
Linda Hayes.
I feel there's pros and cons to both of them. There's quite a few individuals that are for block. There are a few individuals that are wanting traditional. However, personally, I prefer the block, but this was another one of those tough decisions that had to be made to go back to traditional for the savings. Again, we're forced to cut so much money in a short period of time, and wherever it can be cut, we have to make those tough decisions and do so.
Karen Klein-Jerome.
I taught at Davenport Central under the block schedule. I would support keeping the block schedule. The only money going to be saved by going back to the traditional is through electives. Students are going to still have to take the same amount of English, math, science, social studies, but what they aren't going to have the opportunity to do is have as many electives as they can now, which means cutting band, art, the fine arts, the practical arts, and those types of things. So I also think that students who have a difficult time in school, 7 classes is going to be overwhelming. I listened to a parent at the last school board meeting say, my son is doing very well because of the block schedule and only 4 classes. She said he would not have done well with 7, and I agree with that. That is overwhelming to some students, so I would support keeping the block scheduling.
Katarina Bolton.
I support keeping block scheduling for some of the same reasons she said regarding too many classes for students, cutting back on electives and things that they can take. Initially, when this was brought up way back when for block scheduling, it was to save money. Now we're going, looking at it to save money again. Just as we did with the bus routes, we changed the bell times to save money, and come to find out we did not save money. We actually spent more money. We need to be listening as board members to what our community is saying, because although community by the, I don't know how many, came in by the dozens and opposed it, but yet we still do it. So we really need to listen to the community. If it's overwhelming saying that they don't agree with changing block scheduling, then we don't need to change block scheduling.
Carrie Dugan.
I think that anytime we're looking at budget cuts, we need to ask, how is the magic happening? The magic is happening in budget cuts with block scheduling and period scheduling by when you leave block scheduling behind, you're shortening the amount of prep period that the teacher has. So we're literally saving money on the backs of our teachers by going back to the period schedule. Right now, we cannot save more money on the backs of our teachers. We are pushed them to their brink. They are in a state where they cannot strike for their own rights. We have to look out for them. We can't do that.
Lori Yankee.
I am all for keeping block scheduling. Just to kind of go back, in 2014 is when we said we would go with block, and we were supposed to save $3 million. And now here we are, 2019, jumping back to traditional, and I think it's supposed to be, I think it was $2 million. I would have to go back and get the definite numbers. These are just reactionary decisions, and it's costing teachers and students. It's costing teachers their prep time, and it's costing students their focus as well as other classes. This was just a decision that seemed to be an easy one, but yet again, here we are, impacting the people that are doing the work, our teachers, and impacting our students. So yes, let's keep block.
Mark Holloway.
I am in favor of doing what's best for the students, and from what I've heard from many parents and some students, that block scheduling is their preferred method of learning.
Craig Piggott.
So I've kind of got mixed reviews on this. First of all, my attention span doesn't allow that block scheduling would work in my mind, just because too much time for me would kill me. But the other side of this is that, number one, is I'm not in school. The thing is what we need to do is we need to get the teachers and the students involved in what they feel is the right situation in my eyes. you know, with the college courses and everything that's you know, we're allowing these kids to do with block scheduling. It sounds like block scheduling is definitely a smarter situation to be in. These kids have a million opportunities to get homework done. They've got a million opportunities to get their test done multiple times. I think with this, that, you know, the block scheduling, people had the impression that it was going to be a situation where these kids were going to walk away. They were going to have little to no homework and all this different stuff. My daughter still, to this day, with block scheduling, misses all kinds of assignments. And if it wasn't for her mother on top of her at every step of the way, she would not be where she's at. So my opinion of the situation is that block scheduling is probably the better situation, but I think the general consensus would be a situation that should be looked at. What do the teachers think? What do the students think? And go from there.
Kent Postian.
My grandson that's at West, he prefers the block scheduling. And again, as many of you have mentioned, that I think it's something that input from the students, teachers, and parents, but I would be in favor of block scheduling.
All right, the next question, another one from our audience tonight. There are many issues facing the system right now. In your opinion, what is the single most important one that needs attention and why? Katarina Bolton.
This is a really hard question. Glad I got to go first. Wow. So, single most important issue. That is tough. Right now, what I believe to be one of the single most important issues, because it ties back into a little bit of everything, is the limited representation that we have of our leaders, of our school board, because it's not the policies, the way that we're operating, the way that we're going about, we're not representing our community, our teachers, our students, all of our students, not just our students that can sit in a classroom all day, but even our behaviorally challenged students. So we have this limited representation and conflict of interest as far as people that we have brought on board and things that relations within the community. And this is an issue because we're not able to work on those hard-hitting, pressing issues that impacts all of this. That impacts the achievement gaps, that impacts the resources in the classroom. So really, this representation that we have, again, limited, it impacts our marginalized community.
Michael Duvall.
I see our budget as the single most important issue right now. You know, right now, with us running a deficit, we cannot concentrate on the students. All the school dollars are for the students. We need to be sure that we are spending every dollar that we possibly can on the students. We need district to be transparent and share with everybody where we're spending that money. Be as equal as we can, give everybody the equal opportunity with that budget. That is our current most important topic right now.
Carrie Dugan.
Well, I think you can look at it, we have to include two things. Our number one focus needs to be student achievement, but our number one problem in getting there is the fiscal responsibility. We have to make sure our kids come first, and in order for that to happen, we have to make sure our teachers have what they need in the classroom. And every single budget item does impact the classroom. We have to make sure that we're making responsible choices for our classroom. So I would say student achievement has to happen, but in order to do that, fiscal responsibility.
Karen Klein Jerome.
I think the number one issue is that we need to serve all students and make sure that they get the education that they're entitled to. But in order to do that, we need to restore some trust in the district in the areas of finance and in special education. Both have been cited by the Phase 2 report, and when you cut teachers, you raise class sizes, you're impacting students' education. And when you aren't giving the appropriate special education services to students, you are impacting, again, what students are entitled to. So I think that we need to just always have the priority of students in our mind.
Mark Holloway.
I believe our number one focus should be on fiscal stability. Having a stable budget allows us to do long-term planning, which will help our students, help our teachers. It will provide expectations. What can we expect for next year? What can we expect 2 years from now? That provides a safety area for teachers to develop curriculums, for principals to support them, and for our students to know that they're going to be get all the tools they need to be successful.
Jenner Keeley.
I think our biggest issue right now is the budget. And like you said, our budget stability, really that does impact how we work with and support our teachers and our students. And we need to have total transparency when it comes to dealing with the budget and where those funds are being spent.
Gene Guy.
I think the biggest concern that I have right now is lack of information from the school to the electorate or the taxpayer. They're the people that could go to Des Moines and help us with some of these rules that hamstring our teachers, can help us with adjusting this budget thing so we can understand what's going on, because I'll guarantee you they don't understand the budget. And the problem is that very, very few people make the decisions for the group, and more times than not, it's not always the right one. So I think we need to inform, need to educate our electorate and our taxpayers, people that actually can go out there. Des Moines will listen to thousands where they won't listen to 2 or 3 or 4.
Kent Poston.
I feel budget is the most important thing we have to address. I think we've been kicking the can down the road for too many years. I think it has to get in order. I think one of my concerns is that if we're going to get any relief from the state, I think we may have burned too many bridges along the way. It might be tough to get anything done legislatively, so I think we got to work with the dollars we have and get our house in order.
Linda Hayes.
I do agree with all of the issues that have been cited as being number one, but when it boils down to the actual, there's no real number one, because there's a lot of priorities that we're looking at right now. But if I had to select one, I would say we need to get our budget in order and get that become fiscally responsibility, because we have a lot hinging on that. Without that budget in line, we could easily lose our accreditation. So that is a very important factor. And with the loss of the accreditation, then student achievement goes. There's so many things that can be lost in that. So I would say the budget would be number one if I had to select one.
Lori Yankee.
Much like everyone else, there are many issues to tackle to make our district better, but by and large, the most important one, to me anyway, would be the budget and fiscal responsibility. It impacts everything. It impacts our accreditation. It impacts what our teachers can do in the classroom. It impacts our students. So we would have to sit down, and I will jump back on my soapbox here and say we need that independent audit to really see where we stand. Without having an idea of what our figures truly are, what we truly have to pay back, where we're truly at, we're hindering every teacher in every classroom. We've already, fired 80 plus teachers based off of a plan that has been scrapped. So obviously the budget, it touches everything. So that would be the most important one. Thank you.
Dan Gosa.
I'll agree with almost everybody here. The budget is an issue. It is a major issue. There's a lot of major issues. You've got collective bargaining rights were stripped. I'm going to touch on disproportionality. No one has really talked about that, and that is a huge issue in our district. And when we were talking about budgetary cuts, when we're only going to do this select group and we're not going to take some from the other groups, that's disproportionate. It's not just about race or sex. There are a lot of other factors that affect disproportionality, and I think that's a huge thing with the students we serve, to make sure every student is receiving the proper education that they are owed. That's disproportionate. Saying this budgetary item means more than that one, and so on and so on. I could touch on a lot of different things, but my main thing would be disproportionality.
Craig Piggott.
I believe teachers are probably the most important factor to this whole process. And the reason why I believe that is because right now, currently, teachers do not have any real interaction with the board. I mean, nobody in the board, as far as I've talked to with teachers, there's not this, this is what's happening, this is how it's happening. We're learning through processes where it's expulsion hearings, or whether it's situations where we're, hearing hearsay of what's happening. And I believe that when you empower the teachers, what you do is you ultimately change a lot of different dynamics. Number one is right now we are so far behind the 8 ball with this budget that everybody believes that obviously the budget is a huge important thing. But the biggest thing is when you're down, and when you're down in a business, and I know that you cannot put it into a business perspective, but it absolutely is a business perspective. Right now, kids that are in the school system that have all these opportunities to get things done secondary and multiple times and all these different things, it damages our business. It damages my business. What it does is it allows people to think that they have many, many chances to do things. And I believe that if you empower the teachers, you'll have so many different ways to get ahead with and make it a marketable environment, so that way the dollars are there ultimately for your budget.
Kai Dickman.
Like many others, I would say that the single biggest issue is the budget and fiscal responsibility. Without adequate funding and funding the proper things, the school district simply can't function. And so I also believe that it's imperative that we do a outside audit of the school district to find out where all the money is being spent and what could be the most appropriate things to potentially cut.
All right, we're now going to begin our closing statements of the evening. For our candidates, this is an opportunity for you to summarize who you are, why you're running, and why voters should vote for you 2 weeks from tomorrow. We'll begin with Jenner Keeley.
I know that there's going to be tough budgeting choices to address. Consideration must be given to how these financial options will impact the students and staff of Davenport School District. It is important for a board member to evaluate the learning for all the students of our district. The board must implement policies to make sure that the multiple needs of our students and community address the directives of the Iowa Board of Education and enhance the learning environment. I want to reaffirm my commitment to the students and staff and those supporting student learning. It is crucial for our school board members to balance student achievement and the directives of the budget and to make sure that we close the achievement gap. It's obvious there are going to be difficult times ahead. The audit emphasized that our teachers in the district are committed to our students, and I feel confident that our school board can find a balance that will further support student success.
Thank you. Karen Klein-Jerome.
I want to make sure that students are prepared to lead productive lives, whether they go to college or whether they enter the workforce. Many students are not going to go on to college, and we need to make sure they have opportunities to discover their passion and develop marketable skills. While Davenport has several great vocational programs, the welding program at West, the Pro Start program at Central, we need to expand that and make sure that What we are exposing our students to is a variety of classes that may lead to future employable skills. We need to restore trust in the areas of finance and special education. The district needs to balance the budget while keeping student learning a top priority. With 83 teachers laid off last year and class size increases, students and teachers have taken the brunt of the budget cuts. Teachers should be the last fired when cuts need to be made. I have the experience and the skill to provide oversight for our special education program to make sure laws are followed, parents are informed and involved, and students receive the education they deserve. IEPs are individual education plans, not one size fits all. The district also needs to address the discipline issue going on in the schools. Disruptive students are taking away from the learning opportunities of other students in the class, and student learning should always be the top priority in the district. Finally, I think we need to improve communication in the district. As was cited earlier, most of the people living in the district do not have students in the district, and what they hear is the negative reported in the press. So we need to make sure that they are hearing the good things going on and what opportunities they could have to get involved in the schools, go to school musicals, plays, the band spectacular. And we need to make sure that we are recognizing the great teaching and learning student achievement that is going on in the district. I want to make sure that the district is moving
Thank you.
forward in the right direction, a direction that serves all students
Thank
with
you.
the best education possible.
Next is Mark Holloway.
The Davenport School District has some interesting days ahead of us. But I look at it as an opportunity to right this ship. If you elect me to the school board, I will bring some common sense to our decision making. I will be pushing for budget transparency as well as budget stability. And I want to have a focus on making sure that our kids are going to be successful once they leave this area, once they leave Davenport. I've worked with Davenport schools for over 16 years. And a lot of our students have a lot of promise. A lot of our students have a lot of talent that they can use. I want to celebrate that and help make sure that they are getting every opportunity that's available to them. I really appreciate your support. I hope you work with me to make Davenport Schools the best community school district it could be. Thank you.
Gene Guy.
I am convinced that the information that we talked about here tonight, there were individual selected situations that I believe that if the public and the electorate knew it, and they would help us go to the legislature and make some of these changes that some of the teachers need to have made. I also believe that the budget is a mistake that maybe the last 2 or 3 boards may have made and probably won't be made again. It's a one-time deal. I also think that the public needs to know how to help us change our financing around. For example, if you got to have infrastructure and you got to pay for it and you've got a budget to take care of it, but maybe in some circumstances when you've used it for the things that you need to make your buildings and everything safe, then you can transfer that money over to help pay for payroll. I think our changes at in the school themselves never should be at the LED level. We need to get our health services in order. We need to get our public services in order. We need to stop our dropouts. Dropouts are a major problem because they cause problems. They cost all the way down the line through the police and everything else. That's a lot of money that we spend that maybe we didn't have to if we'd have done a little bit better in the elementary side of the business.
Katarina Bolton.
I am a dedicated community member and parent of children in the district. I have seen the flaws that have negatively impacted our students, teachers, and staff. I am comfortable with being uncomfortable and have the drive and determination to advocate for our entire district and community it encompasses. I do not take this position lightly, as I understand the immense responsibility and commitment board members take on. As a district, we are kind of a pivotal moment. We know what the issues are that need to be fixed, but it's how we address and approach these issues that will make our district thrive or fall further behind. Again, when I had mentioned one of the hardest issues that we're facing as far as the limited representation, again, as far as who our leaders are and what they are about, and the community at large that we represent right now, we're kind of operating as if we don't have these issues with poverty and trauma and things in the classroom. So we really need to build a space for parents, because right now we're really not building that space for parents to come in without judgment in the times that they're able to. For those parents that are working first, second shift, or third shift, we need to find ways to kind of bridge that gap with parents, teachers, and community, and stop this adversarial, relationship that we have right now. And I look forward to being part of that.
Craig Pickett.
Today we learned that Davenport was ranked 246-ish out of 250 growing communities in the United States. Now, whether that's a reflection of where our school system is, or whether it's a reflection of how our leadership in the community is, it's yet to be seen. I can tell you that my platform is basically directed towards the teachers and their ability to get back and teach students. Ultimately, when you teach students and you teach respect and you teach the things that are important to the community, I believe that the community will rise up. I believe that you'll ultimately fix your budgetary problems through desirability of being in the community. I believe that with that, you have to get parents involved. You have to have child accountability, and through that, the only way that they're going to have accountability is through their parenting, whether it be making the parents pay fines, or whether it's a situation where if everybody believes that they don't have any money to do so, make them accountable through the classrooms. But one way or the other, it basically boils back to the families. You see small communities, outlying towns, they don't run the risk and the issues and all the different things that we run every single day with teachers and their ability to teach. With that being said, I believe that between businesses and unions being able to throw back the knowing that they have desired students and people that are going to come into the community, I believe that we get those people involved.
Linda Hayes.
We've heard a lot of great ideas tonight, and if we had some type of magic wand that we could wave and make this the perfect district, all of us would be waving it right now. Unfortunately, we're forced to deal with some tough realities, and we're doing the best we can. There's not a decision that I've made while on this board that I haven't made without taking our priorities, our vision, and our mission statement seriously. These three things have been devised by previous boards. Each one of them have been designed with student achievement in mind, with the best attributes of the district in mind, and I take those very serious. This is an extremely tough job. Like I said earlier, I really took a long time to determine whether or not I was willing to rerun, but I removed self. It's not about me. It's about having a genuine love for our students. It's about having a vested interest in their success. And we need to do that as people to make the decisions for the students. That's very, very important. I feel that with the 4 open seats that we have, 14 individuals are running for those seats. You've sat here tonight and you've heard various platforms here. One thing that I would like you to keep in mind, that will be 3 individuals that will be left on the board when you're making these decisions. Also consider the fact that there have been many things that have been started, and I would really appreciate your support to help finish some of those things that we've begun so we can continue to better our district.
Dan Gosa.
Again, I'm Dan Gosa. I'm a proud husband, father of 4, all right here in the Davenport district. I'm a product of the Davenport Community School District. I love this district. I do everything I can for this community. I volunteer all the time in any way I can. And I know it was referenced earlier, and sometimes I'm not able to be here at every meeting, but I do have a job and bills to pay and a family to provide for. I do represent workers that get to be at home every night for their families, which I do not. But I have never missed a board meeting, whether I've had to phone in or anything like that. I am very involved. I always call the board secretary. I try to stay on top of everything I can. Again, I do this for the kids, right? It's all about the kids, and they're going to be picking our retirement homes, and they're the future, right? I love this district. I support our teachers greatly, our custodial staff and everything like that, and they got a tough hill ahead of them with the gutting of Chapter 20, and their contracts are up next year. I would hate to see them lose the rights that they have. That's a terrible thing, that you have to beg and bargain, or beg and plead to keep what you had. That's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing that our legislator put us in for that. But I'm all about the kids in the community and doing what I can to help. Man, I'm way ahead of the time. You're killing me, Allison. But just in closing, I do care very deeply about this community and doing everything I can to do what's best for our students, our district. And I'm going to close it at that.
Michael Duvall.
I'm Michael Duvall, graduate of Davenport West High in '99. Lived in this community my whole life. Seen a lot. Had a great time in high school. I believe in the schools. I believe in this area. It's a great place to grow up. This area is Iowa, especially. We have a lot to look forward to. We have a lot of changes to make. Might not be your best public speaker, but as an advocate for your children, for the community, I'm going to make the right choices. I want to make Davenport a district of distinction, not just a district that we go to because we live in the area.
Carrie Dugan.
I want to first thank everyone for coming out. This is an amazing turnout. Usually when we have school board meetings, the board is up here and there's maybe 6 people out there with us. And so this is really encouraging. We have a lot of problems, that's no doubt, but we are in a good spot. We just got a new leader. Dr. Kobilski is here and he's ready to take charge. We're going to get a new board, so we are in a good spot. We're ready to make change. There are standards available for us, and we're going to use them. I do want to say one shout out to the dropouts. I think we need to stop being afraid of our dropouts and stop seeing them as a problem. We have a dropout right here in the front who is trying to get an education. She protests for education. She's an advocate for education. She was denied an education because she's a special education student. We can't fear our dropouts. They want education. Thank you.
Kai Dickman.
I care about Davenport and the Quad City area as a whole. I've lived here for over a decade, and this is where I've chosen to make my home and raise my family. I want to contribute to a strong community and do my part to make it the best that it can be. I want our schools to provide our students with the best education possible and for our students to excel. And if elected, I will work to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Kent Poston.
First, I'd like to just commend all the candidates that are running. This is a big job to take on, and I think it's great that we've got 14 candidates that are running. I'd also like to thank the audience for being here. It shows that you're interested. I've been, like I said earlier, I've been to a lot of school board meetings in the last year and a half, and sometimes there's only 4 or 5 people in the audience. I'd like to commend the current board, although I disagree with some of the things that have gone on. I can't say enough about the time and dedication that you have put to this, and I don't think everybody realizes just how much time this requires. It's not only just the school board meetings, it's all the committee meetings, and so my hat's off to you, the board members. Again, I don't agree with everything, but they've made a tremendous sacrifice, and everyone should appreciate that. Again, as I said earlier, I'm a 6th-generation farmer. My My grandkids would be the 7th generation. We've been here all our entire lives. I didn't mention earlier, but something I'm also very proud of is my dad served on the Davenport School Board for 15 years. That was quite a few years ago, but when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma in 1969, my dad handed me my diploma, and that was a thrill of my life. Again, I'd just like to give back to the community, and that is the main reason I'm running. Thank you.
Lori Yonke.
Well, I didn't prepare a 2-minute speech, so I'll just tell you a little bit more. I have spent the last 2+ years attending school board meetings faithfully. I have followed our school board up to the State Board of Education meetings in Des Moines. I have attended SBRC meetings to talk about the budget. I have fought on behalf of our students and our teachers tirelessly for 2 years, and that's not being a board member. And I have annoyed the board members, as I'm sure Ralph and the crowd will share, and Dan and Linda as well. And that's a tiring dedication because I love our schools. No one steps into this role wanting to decimate or change things in a negative manner. It is all about the love of our schools and the love of our students and helping our teachers and helping everyone get to where they need to be. And 2 years, again, of fighting for accountability and transparency, equity, fighting for community engagement that we have not seen as of yet. And then fiscal responsibility. These are vital, important things. And if I'm willing to dedicate my free time of 2 years when I have 4 children at home and a husband who travels, if I'm willing to dedicate that amount of time as a community member and advocate, I guarantee you I would be here for the community and our teachers and our students as a board member. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates for coming out tonight to this forum. And again, thank you to everyone who showed up. This is a great crowd. We want to point out we got many very good questions from the audience. Of course, we could not get to all of them. We are going to be presenting these questions to the candidates, and we will be providing their answers to you in the days to come. The entire forum is going to be put on our website. It'll take a little time to get it all on there and the questions and answered, but look for it by late tomorrow. Also, I'm told that we are still live until 7:30. We'll end a little bit before that, so just be careful with the hot mics out there. As somebody who's been there, you don't want to make that mistake. And I want to give Julie DeSalvo here a few more moments to speak before we end. Thank you.
I don't think there's a whole lot more to say, but please, a huge round of applause for our candidates up here tonight. It's a tough job to sit up here and try to field questions live like that, so they really did a fantastic job. We should be very excited as a community to have this many qualified candidates running for these positions, so please get out and vote. 2 weeks from tomorrow, your input matters. We just saw in a primary election, 8 votes, no, it ended up being 10, made a difference. So remember, your vote counts. So please use your vote to make your voice heard. Thank you for being here. Safe travels home to all of you, and thanks again for supporting the Davenport Community Schools.
And a couple of more things to add. Again, Election Day is coming up November 5th, and the candidates will take office on November 25th. Thank you again.